Welcome to the Victorious Souls podcast with me, your host, Danielle Burnock, that lady on the internet who loves you, connecting you to the love that heals so you can love yourself from survive to thrive. And today, my guest is Allan Blain. Allan is a little bit different than anyone I've had on my show before because he's a former co-owner and CEO of a $40 million company. I don't think I've ever met anyone who's done that before. So that's pretty cool for me. But through a season of multiple hardships, Allan realized that he was missing his calling. And so he launched a new company along with his wife, Nicole, something called Work from Anywhere, which has done phenomenal, by the way. And we'll hear more about that too. And now he coaches others how to succeed. He has a podcast and a new book coming out by the same name, Life is Hard, Succeed Anyways. That sounds like a mantra, Allan. It sounds like a heart mantra. Is that true?
It definitely is. And I can't wait to get into a little bit of the backstory behind it.
Oh, awesome. Well, as I had said to you before we started and in our pre-interview, I discovered you have so much in your story. So I want to just start at the beginning. Let's start at the beginning in your childhood of how you grew up and all the things that led to that first place you stopped with that ginormous company.
Yeah, well, thank you so much, Danny, for having me on your podcast. I'm excited to be here, and I'm just, I like everything I see about what you're doing, and just to get to be a part of it with you and impacting lives in this way, encouraging others and equipping them to live more successful lives is just, it's what drives me. So thank you, first of all. My story, wow, there's a lot that could be said. I'll try to put it in just a nutshell, but I grew up, what I thought was pretty much the Leave It to Beaver type family. And, went to college, met my sweetheart at age 19. We were married by 20. By age 20, we were married. And that was 30 years ago. We're both 50. And we just celebrated 30 years of marriage last September.
Congratulations.
Last year. Thank you. God's blessed us with 6 children. I jokingly say all boys, except for 5 of them. We have 5 girls, 1 boy, and no, the boy wasn't the last one. The boy was number 5. But anyway, because everyone always wants to know that. But I am the oldest of 4 children. I'm actually a 3rd generation home builder originally. So when we got married at 20, it was like, what are we going to do? My dream was to play Major League Baseball. I was playing baseball in college when I met my wife. She was playing volleyball in college. And once I realized that dream wasn't going to be a reality, I just kind of defaulted to the family business and went back and started at the bottom, swinging a hammer for $7 an hour in 1992 when we got married. And fast forward a few years, I started my own. I spent a few years as a California Highway Patrol officer and then went back to construction. But I started my own company. I was nowhere near a $40 million a year business, as you mentioned initially. It was right around, it was 2008 actually, when my father's company, a general contractor in California, I'm in Nashville. We live in Nashville, Tennessee now. At the time we were in Atlanta, but my father's company in California, he asked me to come back and take over the business. 2008, as you all know, was a terrible year for real estate, for a lot of things.
Yeah.
But in real estate, it was the first year they had lost a lot of money. And it was either he was going to shut it down or, he wanted me to come take it over. And so after praying about it, my wife and I decided to move from Georgia back to California, and we took over that business that was not in good condition. But I can't take credit for running a $40 million a year company, because the company was already in existence. The company was already pretty solid financially. It was nowhere near a $40 million company. But I took over in 2008, and I thought, well, hey, there's nowhere to go but up from here after a catastrophic bad year for them. And we shifted very quickly into flipping homes. So we went from building to flipping, and we went from building. They were building maybe 20 or 30 homes a year. Once I took over by 2009, the very next year, we were flipping about 20 homes a month. Can you imagine buying and rehabbing and selling basically a home a day, 20 working days a month,
I
right?
can't. My husband and I tried to do that when we lived in Arizona. We bought a house. We became landlords.
Yes.
Because right when we were trying to sell it was right before, it was in 2008, right in there, right in that space thing. We
Yep.
almost had it sold, and then the bottom fell out. And then
Right.
we were landlords.
And you weren't alone, because I almost felt a little guilty because we had shifted into this niche and we're just crushing it from in 08, end of 08, very end of 08, 09, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16. And we were having our best years ever. And that's when, we were doing 40 million a year in flipping homes and a few other various things, managing some real estate and doing a little bit of new construction still. But I'm looking at these multi-million dollar regional and national big builders that are going bankrupt and, really struggling. But anyway, it was a huge blessing. But that's how I got in to the something that sounds pretty big. And it was. I mean, we were having years where we were making $2, $3, $4, $5 million to split between me and my three partners, who were my two younger cousins by 10 years and my little brother at the time, who I've since lost. But yeah, so we were having some really, really great years, but I was really lacking some of the most important things to me, which was fulfillment, purpose, and time freedom. A lot of the things that kind of drew me into law enforcement initially is like, I never cared about being rich. I cared about making an impact and having a life I liked.
Yeah. Why do you think that you were so fortunate during those times, those years, and the other major contractors were just losing their shirt? What do you think was the difference in there?
That's a really good question. I haven't fully analyzed that, the answer I'm going to give you, because I haven't thought too much about it. I've never been asked that before, but I think just off the top of my head, a lot of builders, even the big builders, were leveraged pretty heavily. And by God's grace, and my father and grandfather, who started the company's frugality, I guess, if you will, our company was pretty much debt free. So we had a foundation that could survive the catastrophic hit that we had in 2008. That alone wasn't enough, though. That's just how we could keep our head above water. And those other big builders, I think, had all this land, all this commitment, all this inventory they got stuck with, had to sell it. And we did too. I mean, but we had, 5 or 6 houses to sell at $20,000 or $30,000 losses on each one that we should have made $50,000 profits on, each. Where they had a lot more inventory and they were stuck with, and they didn't shift. I mean, the third reason, I think, they didn't shift. They didn't adapt. They didn't start flipping homes. We had relationships with people. We had some money, but we had relationships with people that had money. And you remember back to 2008, or not that many years ago, interest rates were so low, people with money had it sitting earning nothing and a CD. And so with trust and good relationships with them, I was able to get access to money at very low rates, paying them 6% and going out and, flipping, millions of dollars worth of homes that the other builders weren't doing. I don't know if they just didn't, for whatever reason, they weren't doing it. It wasn't their business model, I guess.
That's the innovation. That's what I think was the difference between people who survived the pandemic and people who didn't, was innovation. You have to look at it differently. What can we do differently? What do the people need now? Because this is clearly not working anymore. So we need 100%. To do something else. Oh, wow.
Yeah, exactly.
That was probably the wisdom of God just pouring into you, it seems to me.
Well, honestly, the credit, probably, I'd love to take more, I mean, it would be nice to be able to say I could take a lot of credit for that. My little brother, he was the realtor side of our equation. So he wasn't involved in the day-to-day operations of our business at all. Even though he was a silent partner with me, he was the one that would get the listings on the homes we were flipping and sell them. So that's where he was making his money, was on the commission side. And he had the foresight to suggest to us, hey, how about going down to the courthouse? You've already got the contractors. You've already got the subcontractors. You've already got the employees. You've got the machine that you're either going to lay people off, or let's just use this machine in this other vein here and flip homes. He gets to still keep making commissions. We get to still keep making profits and employing our team of about 30 people that we grew to a team of about 50 over those rough years, 09 through 2016, when I got out of it.
Wow. So what made you leave?
That's another interesting story. So as I mentioned before, I wasn't fulfilled. I was not enjoying what I was doing. I didn't feel called to do what I was doing. It was just a means to an end to support my family. As I mentioned, we have 6 children, so it takes a little bit to support a family of 8, and so it was doing a great job financially for us, but it wasn't. And we need money. Don't get me wrong, we need money, but it's not. It's not what drove me, and I don't for any second think it's the most important thing by any means. The most important thing is my children needed some time with their father in their life, and my wife needs some time with her husband, and I need that too. So I started looking at other options, and I realized that this would be a whole nother talk, but just to cut to the chase, in 2015 is when I started really reevaluating my life. My dad was divorcing my mother. A lot of dynamics were happening in the family, the business, that it affected our family. My little sister took her life, and it was she was a beautiful 39-year-old mother of 4.
I'm so sorry. Oh my
It was a
goodness.
super tough time,
Oh
super tough
yeah.
time. I mean, and she was very well loved. I mean, I've never seen a funeral or celebration of life or whatever one might call it so large. I mean, she's the soccer mom. It wasn't like she had some big platform or something, and 1,500 people showed up at that mega church for her funeral. That's how loved she was. But anyway, that rocked my family. There's a lot of stuff. I don't know how much we want to get into all the challenges of my life, but I'll say this: there was a season right there where I really started questioning, what am I doing? Why am I doing it? I'm 50 now, so I'd have been 42, 43, I guess then. This was about 8, 9 years ago. Like, what am I doing? And I started really reevaluating my life. And it just came crystal clear for me that this wasn't my calling work wise. This isn't my passion. This isn't even necessarily where I want to be living. This isn't impacting lives on the scale I want to impact them, starting with my own household.
Mhm.
And that's when I started looking at options. And what I did was I realized that the nutritional products that had revolutionized my sick wife's health back when we were 27 years old, 20, 28 years old, 22 years ago, which is a whole nother story in itself. And that we had been taking every day for 15 years, I guess, at that point in 2015, had a component of it that we could partner with and leverage and market and create a business from our phones. And that ties into what you were sharing that I call my work from anywhere business.
Mhm.
And so we started that in March of 2015, as I was still CEO of this $40 million company. I didn't walk away from that. I still was working my 50, 60 hours a week doing that. She had her full-time job homeschooling, my wife, that is, Nicole. She had her full-time job homeschooling our 6 children. So we were both busy, to say the least, but we
Oh
poured
yeah.
we poured every waking hour almost, that we weren't doing those things, into this other business that we do now full-time. And over the course of 16 months, so by summer of 2016, the following year, it was generating a $9,000 a month income, what you would call a 6-figure annual income passively. And that is when, Danny, some people would think this is crazy, but that is when I'm like, hey, we had a very low debt lifestyle. In fact, the only debt we had at that point was our house, our mortgage. And we said, hey, we can pay the bills on $8,000 or $9,000 a month with a family, even with a family of 8, single income. We can get by on that. And this is what I did. And I went to my partners, my little brother and my 2 younger cousins by 10 years. And I told them what I was going to do. I gave them the company, the building company. I literally gave it to them, and I walked away. And so that was in 2016 to come home with my wife full time and to take this business and to scale it. And it's been nothing short of just rewarding. I guess rewarding would be the word I might use. But in the last, gosh, well, it's been 8 years total. We've been doing it, maybe 7 years full time since 2016. And it's grown to include about 10,000 others in 10 or 12 countries, and just the stories that keep coming back to us of life. We call it our life transformation business, as we also call it, because we just keep seeing life transformation on a health side, on the financial side with people who partner with us, as well as just on the personal growth and development side from being involved in what we do in our community and all the leadership training and all the stuff that we are a part of. It's just been super fun, and it energizes me, to say the least.
Yeah, I can tell just listening to you. I would like to go back a little bit to that season of hardship, because kind of like skipped over that almost like it wasn't a big deal, but I
Right.
know it was. So I don't
Absolutely.
want that to be minimized at all, because that's something people do, and then they don't deal with their hardship. They minimize it. Wasn't a big deal. But your mom and dad got divorced.
Right.
You lost your sister, your little sister. I mean, that had to be just gut wrenching to go through that. Then I remember you saying something about one of your daughters had cancer. Also, that's another thing that you went through. And losing someone to suicide is just a whole different kind of pain.
It is.
I would imagine that for whatever reason she did that, I don't want to get all up in her business. I would imagine that because of that happening, that really drove you to evaluate your life. Wow, she did that. What am I doing with my life? Is there a connection there with that?
You would think it's a great question. I don't know if I ever made that correlation then, and I don't know if I can even to this day as I think about it, because I honestly have not thought about it in that way. What I do, I don't know. What I can say is you're right. That was a dark season, and that season was like, it was just a very few short years where those things happen. You know, from our teenage daughter.
But years are long. We say
True.
short years, but years are long.
Right. Just yeah, exactly. The years can be long, but
especially when they're dark. And it's like, how did you emerge out of that darkness? How did you emerge out of that darkness, which with such a victorious heart in you, that you just gloss over it as if it was, oh, it's just a few short years. And I don't mean that to sound degrading in any way. It's more like, wow, what did you do? Because you can look at it that way. But someone else who's going through something that dark, I don't want them to dismiss that. So what was your strength? What was it that gave you that ability through that dark time?
Wow, that is a really good question. I have been thinking a lot on lately, because I've been getting asked that question a lot more lately. If I could just back up a little bit to clarify something and then jump to the answer to that question of what helped me get through that season, because you're right. You're absolutely right, Danny. So many of us have challenges. I mean, I'm not alone. I'm not unique in the sense that I've been through some hard things. And when I said those few short years, I guess that wasn't probably the best way to say it. A lot of tragedy and hardship happened in a relatively compressed period of time, is what I was trying to communicate. It did seem like a long season, and it did seem like a very dark season. And there's others, and we don't need to go into it all, I know, but like even losing my sister, she took her life. It was 2 years later that my brother, one of my partner that I was mentioning, the realtor, took his life in 2018. So my sister was 2015, my brother was 2018. In between there, right around 2015 was my parents' divorce. A couple years before was our daughter's cancer. You know, there's a lot more. But to get to the point, I'm going to share something else with you, because I think this will encourage your audience.
Okay.
I remember someone sharing with me, because I don't know, I would guess that probably everybody listening to this episode has had difficult times and or is in a challenging time right now. And at some point in their life probably has said, why me? Why does my marriage or my health or my finances or my whatever have to be like this? And I remember someone sharing with me, actually, I was on another podcast a few years ago, and the guy shared this with me. He goes, someone shared with him that if we could see everybody else's challenges and they were laid out on a table in front of us, and we were like at a swap meet, and we could walk around and I could see yours, Danny, laying on the table before you, because I can't see your challenges through the screen. Right. But if I could see them on the table in front of you, and you could see my life challenges on the table in front of me, we could walk around the swap meet and see everybody's on the table in front of them. And we had the choice of who we wanted to swap with. He said we'd probably look around and look at everybody else's and realize we were feeling sorry for ourselves until we do this. And we look around and we go, yeah, I think I didn't realize Danny was dealing with that, and he was dealing with that, and she's dealing with that. I think I'll just keep my own, you know? And I think there's so much truth in that. But the one thing that helped me, to answer your question specifically, that helped me get through is vision. If you just say, what was it that helped you pull through that super dark time? That was a long period of time, several years. What helped me pull through? Vision. I don't know that I would have pulled through it, period, let alone come out victorious and living an abundant, healthy, medicine-free, energetic, impact-filled life at 50 years old. I don't know that I would have without vision. I think that was the key, is what the vision that I was able to obtain. And that was through help of other outside sources and people that helped me, and God's grace, to create a vision for my life of where I was going, to help me be able to get through all those challenges and have a long-term horizon for my life and not get caught up in the here and now and the pain of the moment.
Yeah. So how did God play into all of this? At the beginning, you mentioned you were in this Christian cult, which probably wasn't so Christian. So where did God become a real part of your life and not a cult, non-Christian, whatever that was before?
Yeah, yeah. Well, I did grow up in a home that professed, to be a Christian home and all that. And in fact, even when I was a little kid, I thought, well, I went to church and I said the right prayers and, I must be okay. But it wasn't until age 28, to answer your question specifically, at 28, I came to a place in my life, and this was that season of a few years where I had got out of construction and I was a California Highway Patrol officer, a CHIPS, if you will, for anyone that's old enough to remember that show, even though it's not quite exactly like the show. But in that season of my life, I had same wife I have today, beautiful wife, Nicole. She's
Hallelujah.
amazing. Yeah, I had a beautiful wife. I had 3 children, and that's all I thought I wanted at the time. I had the career I thought I wanted because I didn't want to be rich. I'm like, this is what I wanted. I got the 1% get hired by the California Highway Patrol, at least at the time. I don't know about now. So I'm like, I got my dream job. I've got everything. I live in where I want. It's not my dream car now. I drive a Tesla now, but I had the F-250 diesel 7.3 liter long bed. Like, I had my dream truck. I had everything I wanted, and I realized I was missing something really important because I was not happy. And that is when I chose to go God's way and just say, I didn't even really know what I was doing. I was just like, I'm going to give my life to God. Like, I'm going to start reading the Bible that I never read, and I'm going to see what it says. And I'm just going to follow it and obey it and trust him with my life. And my life has been forever changed. And that was several years, I guess, before I went through the darkest season of my life.
Wow. I think I'm going to go God's way, just
Yeah.
nonchalantly like that.
It's
Wow.
100% how it happened.
That is so
That's exactly,
cool.
I view it now as like, people talk about getting saved or salvation, whatever terminology
Yeah,
someone wants to
whatever
use
terminology.
yeah, but that's what I view happened the day I just made a decision that I'm doing things my way, just consulting me, my and mine, and not giving 2 thoughts about God or what his plan might be for my life. And it's not working out. I mean, I got what I want and I'm still not happy. Well, now what?
Yeah.
And I think there's a lot of people, I mean, I don't know, from Elvis Presley to a lot of others, that got probably everything they wanted and they weren't happy. And
Yeah.
so that's kind of the realization I came to at age 28, thankfully.
Wow. Yeah. Real life is a lot deeper than your stuff.
It is very
Wow.
much.
So that's so cool. That is so cool. But you do coaching now too. And I read on your website that you love doing it. So what is it about coaching that lights you up so much?
It does light me up. That's a good way to say it, Danny. I love seeing lives transformed. I love seeing somebody go from where they are to where they want to be, or at least a little further along on that journey. Maybe I don't ever get to see where they really ultimately want to be, but I get to see them moving towards that goal, and to see, I know what it's like to live a life of, like I say, quiet desperation. Cause I think that describes the majority of people in my experience. They may not realize it. They're just kind of leading lives of quiet desperation. They're kind of going through motions, doing the same thing, same routine, same job, not because they love it, not because they're passionate about it, just because nobody's ever really helped them think bigger than what their life entails. And so it's kind of boring. And so and that was so that I can say this for sure, that was my story. And I never could really dream big. And I never really could see my life have an impact beyond a very small, little, teeny tiny circle. And so when somebody helped me, I mean, multiple people helped me, but one person in particular, a friend of mine, really came alongside me, and he wasn't even a coach I paid for. But he was willing to help me see what I could be and what my life could be and what the impact of my life could be and how the use of my life could outlive my life. and I caught a vision. He helped me catch a vision. And I know the fruit of that. I know the impact. I know the fulfillment. I know the joy I've had for years in walking in that purpose and that calling, and the excitement that it is to wake up every day knowing that's what you're doing. And so to be able to be that person for somebody else, just one other person would be amazing, but to get to do it for multiple people, or in my case now, hundreds of thousands of people, directly or indirectly, I should say, because I can't coach directly thousands of people one-on-one anyway.
Really?
But it's just really, it really drives me, because I know that somebody ultimately did that for me, and I want to do that for others. It lights me up.
Yeah, there's nothing like witnessing life transformation. I concur with that, with what I do, and that's what lights me up with what I do too, is causing life transformation and just seeing that change in a person's life, or when they get that aha moment and you just see the light go on inside of them, and it's
Right.
so cool, very, very rewarding. So
Yeah. And I'm sure it's a big part of why you do this podcast, I would guess, just
yeah,
knowing you're giving back to others and making an impact. And, the Bible says it's better to give than receive. And when you do give and you're serving and you're adding value to the world, or individually or corporately like this, like you're doing through the podcast, I mean, it is a wonderful thing. It's a wonderful feeling.
yeah, I love the podcast. I love hearing your story and all the stories I get to hear. Sometimes I feel selfish about that, because I love just doing these interviews. I enjoy them so much, the conversation and sharing the story, but then being able to help you by sharing your story with others that would maybe never hear about it, because I'm just a different, circle than you are in.
Right.
And then putting it out there to other places as well, to the people who listen, that it can change their lives. It's like transformation, transformation, transformation all over the place.
100%. And I can agree with you. I do. I feel, I don't know if guilty is the right word. I don't know that you use that word, but I feel, yeah. I mean, I just feel
it's like,
almost,
I enjoy this too much. Is that
yeah,
okay?
it's almost unfair that I get to do this and have all these great conversations with amazing people like yourself and others all around the country and really all around the world. It's pretty exciting.
Yeah, it is. I love interviewing people from other countries. It's been really phenomenal doing that too. And you have a podcast now. So what led you to
I
start
do.
your podcast?
Well, that's a great segue, because we were just talking about, you were asking me what drives me or why I like to coach so much. And in my coaching, with members of my team and others, what I started doing. So for a long time, I kept a lot of the struggles and challenges kind of to myself. Facebook and Instagram, they're just highlight reels, right? We only see kind of the good, the highlights of people's lives. And I guess it's good that it's that way, because if it was all the low lights of everybody's life, I don't know that we'd want to see that, but but it can give false, it can give a false impression that
Right.
that somebody does not have challenges in their life. So in the coaching, I realized, a few years ago, I wish I'd have realized it a lot sooner, that when I was able to be vulnerable and be real and wisely share some of the challenges I've been through, some of the challenges I'm still going through, because I still have challenges in my life, but and always will.
You
That's
do?
the thing.
Oh.
Yeah, I always will. That's an aha moment.
Yeah,
That really is a big
really.
deal to understand,
Yeah.
and come to the realization that there will never be a time when life is just roses, rainbows, and butterflies, and we sail off into the sunset, and knowing how to deal with it is important. But where was I going with that? What was the question?
Your podcast, and why you
Yeah,
started
yeah.
your podcast.
Thank you. So when I started sharing with people and opening up some of the challenges I'd been through, and this along in conjunction at the same time while I'm having success in this business, it was almost like, figuratively speaking, scales fell off their eyes and a hope got pumped into their lungs, that to think, it was almost like, it's like, well, wow, you've been through this, that, and the other, while succeeding in this business on a grand scale. Cause I mean, now our business is substantially bigger than, the where I started 7 years ago when I said I went full time. And it gave them hope, because I could see them going, well, if you're able to succeed with those challenges, then there's hope for me, because
Right.
I've got some challenges, And so that led to me feeling like, man, what if I put this in a book? Not just my story, because that's part of it, but what if I took my story and brought from each challenge that I've been through, the lessons that I've learned that are applicable to anyone, any age, male or female, in any occupation, of how they can actually succeed in life. And I say in my podcast on episode 1, I define success. And success is so much more than money. It's not perfect. It's not just it. Money is success. Professional success is success, but it's success in their health, in their relationships, in their spiritual life. It's the whole package. To me, that's true success. And like, what if this book was applicable to everybody, and my story, being vulnerable, and lessons learned, could impact people's lives in that way? How cool would that be? So I start writing the book. Then I have that idea leads to the next idea. Well, what if I start a podcast doing the same thing, but it's not just about my story? Sure, I share my story on episode 1, but then for the most part, every episode thereafter is I'm interviewing other successful people, male, female, old, young, every occupation under the sun, that are having success, and talk about the challenges they've been through and how they're succeeding anyway, and asking them very intentional questions around that. Like you asked me, what's the key? What would you say to someone in the midst of a challenge? Like, how do you get through it? What's the key to getting through it? And I ask a lot of questions surrounding that. And it's been so much fun, because I've had people on there like comedians with millions of followers, pastors of mega churches, NFL players, all various different kinds of business owners. And so the gamut of perspectives, and there's so many common themes that keep coming up. I'm only 33 episodes in. We started it last September, but so many common themes. Some very unique things people say, but there's some common themes. It's really fun to get to see. I'm having a blast with it. Lot of good feedback of people being encouraged by the story. So I'm having fun with it.
That's cool. I didn't know the book came before the podcast.
Yeah.
Which it's not out yet. When do you expect your book to be able to come out?
Well, that's interesting you ask, because I started in 2022, I think around summer, probably. And I was saying I was hoping to be done with it by this summer, 2023. And at this point, if I have it done by the end of 23, I am going to be pleasantly surprised. It's taking much longer than I had hoped.
Yeah, doing a book does take a lot.
And I'm trying to find the balance, Danny, between just getting it out there, because it's going to be good content regardless, and my perfectionistic personality that goes, hey, I want this first one to be, I know there's no such thing as perfection, but perfect. Or maybe that's not the wrong word. Like, I want it to be amazing. And just trying to find that balance of, hey, how amazing does amazing need to be to just get it done? And I keep reminding myself of the 80-20 rule. And I know there's a lot of 80-20 rules, but I'm a perfectionist. So the 80-20 rule I'm talking about, I love the 80-20 rule that says, get something 80% good enough. Like, don't throw slop out there. Get it to be a B, get it 80% good enough, and then implement. And then if that's not good enough, go take the 20% that's not good enough and get it 80% good enough in version 2.0. And now you're 96% to perfection, and you can just keep doing that, because some of us just get analysis paralysis and we'll never put anything out or take a step of anything, So that's what I'm trying to work through right now with the book.
Wow. Yeah, well, that's good advice for people. I've learned from my business coach about imperfect action. We have to take imperfect action.
Yep.
Another one of my coaches, I learned about practicing in public. You have to just put it out there. It's scary, but you have to just put it out there. And if you need to fix it, then you fix it.
100%. That's the same mindset. That's a success principle right there. So I love that you're sharing that.
Yeah. Well, is there anything that we haven't covered you want to make sure people know before we say goodbye?
Boy, I don't know. I just, I guess I would just, in closing, maybe say, I could be talking to a wide variety of people in a wide variety of situations. The one thing I would say is, don't be afraid of change. I think that would probably be one of my closing comments, just in the context of the conversation we've had today, Danny. Is I think so many people, myself included in the past, are so afraid of change that they stay in situations out of fear. And the one thing I remind myself constantly, because I face fear all the time. And the one thing I love to remind myself is, I want to be courageous. And I hope everyone wants to be courageous. I think everyone would say, I want to be courageous. Well, if there's no fear, in the absence of fear, there's no courage required. So
Mhm.
there's so many, I think, that are wanting to do this. They want to move, they want to change careers, they want to change this or make a new friend or whatever the thing is, get out of a situation. But there's so much fear that they're paralyzed. And to go, hey, everybody has fear. The most courageous people, they have fear and they face it anyway. They do the right thing or the whatever it is anyway. I think
Mhm.
that would be my closing comment is don't be afraid to change. Fine. If you're feeling called a different direction and you're scared, doesn't mean it's not the right thing to do. It just means it might be you might need to be exercising some courage to
Courage,
execute that.
courage, yes, courage. I
Yes.
promote that a lot. In fact, they just talked about that in church on last Sunday, and we sang that song, Take Courage.
Love it.
I love that song too. So how can people connect with you if they want to be a part of your work from home thing? How do they go about doing that?
Yeah, I would love to have conversations with anyone that might want to chat about it. My website is allanblain.com and it's spelled a little unique, so I'll spell it, but it's ALLAN Blain, B as in boy, LAIN.com. And all my contact information's there on the contact page. You can connect with me through Facebook, Instagram, whatever, LinkedIn, TikTok. It's all there. The podcast is there, there's a podcast page and all that, but I'd love to hear from any of your listeners that want to chat or, hey, someone just wants some encouragement. I'm happy to help in any way that I can.
Oh, wonderful. Thank you for being with me today, Alan. Thank you for sharing your journey, your story, your courage that you had in the middle of your journey as well. You took courage in the middle during that real hard upheaval part and latched onto vision and built a whole new life.
Yep,
So thank
absolutely.
you. Thank you.
Well, thank you very much for having me, Danny. It's been fun.
And our listeners, thank you for being with us today. Connect, reach out to Alan, listen to his podcast, be encouraged today. And I encourage you also to be courageous. Until next time, I love you.